124. Facebook UTV 124. Instagram UTV 124. Twitch UTV 124. TikTok UTV_124. And Flow TV channel 124. Remember, UTV, TV for you.
The opinions expressed on this TV program by the hosts, co-hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of UTV or its affiliates.
Hello, St. Lucia, to all around the world and, of course, on the ground here today. Thank you all for joining the Revolution. This is UTV channel 124 on Flow. Apologies to all those who are looking forward to Trisha's show mornings. She's not in today. She's not feeling well, but she will be back, God spare, on Monday. But thank you for staying with the broadcast and joining UTV anyway. And for those who stayed locked into Hits Radio 92.1 in the north, 91.1 FM in the south, thank you so much for your support. For those of you locked in on Facebook, UTV124, on Twitch, on Instagram, on Twitter, and of course on Facebook as well, not Facebook, YouTube, as well as TikTok, thank you very much all for locking in. It is Friday, the 25th of June, 2021, or as we now know it, it is the 19th day of the 6th year of the 5-year administration of the Shasney kakistocracy and cabal and kleptocracy. Yes, we have to come up with new ways to amuse ourselves in describing. I want to send a couple of shout outs. Birthday greetings going all the way to New York, going out to Curtis Brown, coming from your kids, your wife, and of course your community, family circle, home circle. Wishing you all the best today, knowing that you will definitely live it up. Greetings also going out to some wonderful friends. Birthdays today: Leela, Venetia, Sick, and Debian. Wishing all of them happy birthday. Also sending out birthday greetings to Auntie Erosia Andrew of Labrie, coming from your niece Narissa Andrew and Johnson Berrance of Labrie. It's your 65th birthday, I understand. So hope you have a wonderful day today, and thank you for locking in as well. Last but not least, I want to send birthday greetings going out to the hoped for future district representative for Micoud South, a true son of Micoud South, went to Miss Uriza's preschool, a FIFA-level football administrator, taught cricket, even to Darren Sammy and his friends, his peers, growing up on the Deriso playing field, lives in the constituency, has been a principal in Micoud, an educator. I'm talking none other than the opposition leader in the Senate, and that would be Gibeon Ferdinand. Happy birthday today. I hope you have a great day, and I know greetings will be coming to you from your kids, your wife, your family, and as one of the truly transcendent candidates and characters in politics. You are one of the few, because the fact that the UWP, even with Arson James before he did his last term, actually was still courting you to join the United Workers' Party. So that means that there are people in that community who saw you and know that you would be the best person for the job rather than any aliens that have come in. I wish you a great birthday, hoping that you are readying, because I can see the momentum building island-wide, but I hope you are ready. I know that there are many in the community that are wishing you well today as well. So happy birthday, Gibo, and of course, all the best. So folks, where do we start? Well, let's start off with the Willie Lynch psychology.
There have been 5 more COVID-19 related deaths. So says the Ministry of Health in a press release issued on Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021.
Of these measures, this adjustment to the COVID-19 control regulation will be made available to the public. If you want some more information on this, you want some more elucidation, you can go on to the website covid19response.lc. That is COVID-19response.lc for some more information. But this is just the adjustment, and we do hope that everyone adheres to the protocols. We are still at risk, we remind you, for COVID-19, making significant stride with the vaccination. Nonetheless, we need to continue adhering to these protocols. See the leeway that we're getting from the government of St. Lucia. It is not to be abused. It is not to be disregarded, disobeyed. These are enshrined in the law, and we should adhere to them. And we're seeing not necessarily a restriction or a tightening of a belt. There is some slackening. There is some leeway that is being provided to the population at this time to assist the transportation, food and beverage, as well as event sectors and other linkage industries as well. So please take note of this. And I mean, I for one can say that I definitely appreciate this space that we have been afforded based on the strides that we have made in the management of COVID-19. We continue for the morning. St. Lucia is recording 12 new cases of the virus.
You hear that? St. Lucia is recording 12 new cases of the virus. But I want you to note, and this is where the psychology is so important, because right now they have all their operatives making little videos, and you'll see them, dancing because they got the freedom, they get a little relief. Then you have one saying there, one of the operatives, the comedians on Instagram, is posting videos, being so happy, he's dreaming about what he can do with the relaxed curfews and protocols. And that's exactly where the problem starts. Why should we be appreciative because the government has provided some relief to us? This is the same government that imposes the restrictions. So when you talk about the Willie Lynch doctrine, what we are talking about is the same person, the same slave master in the Willie Lynch doctrine that will abuse the slave, beat the slave, rape the slave, molest the slave, sexually assault the slave, torture the slave. When that slave is starved, that same slave will be given food by the person that did that to them, and they will feel grateful and appreciative. Why do I have to be grateful and appreciative to a government when we first of all are saying it is all of our efforts? 1. 2, we all know that the government has prosecuted COVID, even though the disease does not discriminate, along discriminatory lines, because we keep importing the disease without second testing, letting guests roam around without masks, and give it to locals who go into the communities, and then it creates community spread, which ends up in our healthcare facilities. But we have to be thankful for that, because hey, the same people that could not rationalize why they put certain measures in place for one set of people and not for others, even if those others, those foreign nationals, have a greater likelihood and frequency of COVID in their country. And yet we're supposed to be thankful. We're supposed to be appreciative. And this whole weekend, you will see them pushing. They're pushing it all online. Oh, you have to be so happy and so thankful. Wow, Master, you're letting me open my business so that I can ply my trade and hustle so that I can make money, even though you gave me nothing for all what I have lost in terms of unemployment benefits or stimulus. Now I can have a party with 150 people or a bar gathering. But here's the question, folks. By what metric? Because you heard it there on NTN, Jesse Leos is saying, because of the strides we have made with COVID. Folks, 2 things have happened. In fact, 3. And let's be honest about it. The first and most important thing is, sadly, we as human beings have gotten tired of COVID. We have just fatigued. We are tired of the stories. We're tired of to be worried about it, the anxieties, the protocols, everything that is antithetical to human nature. We've gotten tired of it. Even if people are still dying, even if we hear about cases, it's just not, sad to put it this way and crassly, but it's just not entertaining to us anymore after a year plus. That's part one. Part two is, and that's what we don't want to talk about, part two is that there is no metric that the government has ever introduced, no target, no standard that we needed to meet. How many cases did we need to get down to? Deaths needed to stop. Oh yeah, we have a measure, an international measure, which the Prime Minister and others used to talk about, but they removed that from the lexicon of the country. So we no longer talk about the R rate. We don't talk about the R rate and what target we should be meeting before we relax or we add on protocols. You hear about people talking about we need to reach herd immunity before we can even call elections. But the same people were telling you we have to coexist with COVID. So no matter how many tourists come in and bring in UK variant and this variant and that variant, we just have to keep blaming and citing the locals who are not obeying the protocols while the tourists could continue to do it no matter what. Now, folks, the third and last, it's not the most important thing, but we all know it. The major reason why these things are happening is because of politics. Because the shit has already hit the fan. The horses have bolted the stable. Politics is happening. And even if they wanted to browbeat, because you know already COVID is only if people have red shirts. COVID is only Labour Party people. Right? They know that they got the ball rolling as far back as Shasney going on campaign in Odsa without mask, going around the country, going Denry South with Este, going to Choiseul with Bradley and Herod in Soufrière. All of that was happening. You saw Herod without mask, right? You had Guy Joseph having motorcades and all kinds of stuff before any PAN event started. And the best thing about PAN is you can do it and still obey all the protocols. But because it has become a brass tack situation and Shasney and them is all about winning now. Basically, it's like, let go, it's too far gone. And the truth is, I thought if they really wanted to risk it, I thought what they were going to do, relax the protocols and go for 3 weeks hard campaigning, bathe the country in stolen money, and then by the time the spikes come back, oh my, I wonder if, since they were tamping the numbers before, I wonder if there's a spike in cases with the relaxed protocols, if they can use it to delay calling elections. And you know the worst part? You'll say you've been conspiracy theorists, but the problem is with these guys, you just cannot trust. No, let me say that differently. You can trust that you cannot trust this government.
There have been 5 more COVID-19 related deaths. So says the Ministry of Health in a press release issued on Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021. According to the ministry, this brings the total number of COVID-19 related deaths to 84. But these new deaths aren't actually new. According to the Ministry of Health's release, they were all recorded between February and May 2021. The details of those deaths are as follows. Death 80 is a 60-year-old female from Dennery who died on April 4th. Death 81 is a 54-year-old male from Castries who died on February 23rd. Death 82 is a 76-year-old male from Grosley who died on April 5th. Death 83 is a 92-year-old female from Castries who died on March 9th. Death 84 is an 84-year-old female from Soufrière who died on May 29th. It is unclear why the deaths were not listed in the order in which they occurred, but that's only one of the questions arising from Tuesday's peculiar press release. Other pointed queries include, was a different cause of death recorded for each of these 5 individuals at the time of their passing? Has the Ministry of Health changed the criteria to determine that a death is COVID-related? And were the results of COVID-19 tests for these 5 individuals only just received? While none of these questions have been answered, the Ministry of Health, through the press release, has provided a brief explanation. It is stated that the epidemiology unit of the Ministry of Health periodically reviews and updates the COVID-19 database. This is a process referred to as data cleaning. Through this activity, those 5 deaths were, quote, reclassified. With more questions than answers, the Choice News team reached out to the Ministry of Health for more clarity through either an exclusive interview or group press conference. However, we understand that officials are still reviewing reports and records, and only then will a more extensive statement be issued. While the public awaits answers, there is yet another issue arising. The first of the 5 new deaths announced on Tuesday, June 22nd, is being referred to as death number 80. However, in a press release dated June 2nd, death number 80 was announced as an 84-year-old female from Soufrière. Since there was never a retraction of that announcement, it is unclear why the newly announced deaths are not referred to as deaths 81 through 85. We also await clarity from the Ministry of Health on that discrepancy. For Choice News Now, Nelsia Shalmine reporting.
In more news related to COVID-19, on Wednesday, the Ministry of Health announced receipt of 11 new cases.
Now, I want you to think about this, folks. If it wasn't for Akeem Lacher pointing this out, would we have even gotten that update? What could be more important as a statistic? And the worst part is how they couch it in press releases. They always put the deaths. I mean, how many infections is important? How many recoveries is important? I get all of that. But the number one thing will always be how many people have died. And yet you're telling me that data cleaning and this, that, and the other, like it's no big deal. People's lives are changed and altered. They've lost family members. People have died. And we're talking about this glibly like, well, yeah, no big deal. No big deal, but we can relax protocols, or we need the protocols because we have to get to herd immunity. And you see the emotional roller coaster that Shastinian put you on? Always bullshitting you, having you to think, oh my gosh, we must reach herd immunity. And another time, we need to coexist with COVID. You see, that type of anxiety, governance by confusion. So now, all of the surrogates of government are telling you that you need to be thankful and grateful to the same person who stifled and stymied your civil liberties without equitable distribution. If you are going to restrict my civil liberties, it cannot be for me and the other person next to me who has an even higher probability coming from a foreign country, coming from a place where they can take a home test 5 days before they come to the country, not do a second test, come to St. Lucia, and they get preferential treatment even though the disease doesn't discriminate. And I'm supposed to be grateful when you give me each little kakada of extra time. So 11 o'clock, so the disease stopped flying out around at night. The COVID sukuyon, imagine where stop flying. They're only going after 11 now. They're not going at 10 or 9:30 like they were going, what, 2 days ago? Folks, don't let them fool you. But that said, since we're dealing with diseases, I want to deal with the real disease that's plaguing this country. COVID is one, but the real problem here in St. Lucia is greed.
The guys went into cabinet, hear me, and acquired the very land on which the Dolphin Park was supposed to have been built. So, all along, the idea of the Dolphin Park was thrown out because the intention was to acquire that land. The public figured we want no Dolphin Park. Government relented in that regard, but they treated the land as unfinished business. The property is registered in Chef Harry's name deceased up to today. And this is a downright illegality. Now the AG had to leave the room because he's cousin to Mac Maraj. He and Mac Maraj are cousins. Folks, I want to say this. I am calling on the government of this country. I am calling on the Prime Minister. I am calling on the Bar Association, because you see, when the lawsuits for compensation start to be filed and fly helter-skelter, it is taxpayers' money that will have to be used in compensation. I am calling on all of you to stop those payments. Cabinet is opening a can of worms here. Cabinet is opening a route ripe for even more corrupt activities. Because how on earth property is not vested in Gold Sky Investments, but the government of this country is agreeing to pay $9.4 million to a company that merely has a caution against the property, like many other companies and banks. You know, that has to stop. So I'm calling on government to stop this payment. I am calling on Invest St. Lucia to stop this $3 million payment. I'm calling on them. If the property is acquired, and I know it is not needed now because the conclusion clearly says for future touristic purposes. If the property is needed and it is acquired and it is registered in the name of a deceased person, the right thing to do is to keep the compensation amount in an escrow account. It should be kept in an escrow account until the executor or executrix, if there is a will, or the administrator or administratrix, in case of letters of administration, until they come forward either with a probated will or letters of administration, both of which are issued by the High Court of Justice. Unless that is done, Cabinet cannot take $9.4 million and pay to a company compensation for land when that land is not vested in that company's name. This is an illegality of the highest.
Well, folks, for those who have not been following this firestorm, this saga of blatant corruption, all you have to know is simply this. The Prime Minister's personal lawyer is set to be paid $9 million in cash and kind for land which was not in his name at the time that Cabinet approved the transaction. Can you say quid pro corruption? There you go, and that's the point. But for those who need it broken down, because you'll hear people like Spider going on blazing and say, if for me, I don't ever want to see another beachfront property or any more beaches have hotels on them. And yet they're already mortgaging and paying with your money. They're already buying property for future touristic purposes, which is beachfront property again. And sadly, the young people of this country, instead of being treated to the celebrity and the genius that was Chef Harry and the cultural folklore which should surround him and his story on NTN features and having, awards named after him and having courses and dishes in culinary arts named after him, instead of that, all we are being treated to is the greed of Mark Mirage, the pathological, sociopathic, lying disease that he has, and the rest of the cabal government, And then we have to break it down to John Q. Public, while Chef Harry is having his own legacy be assaulted and having his own property, having his children, his siblings, his offspring, his progeny, having them mired in this quagmire created by, again, Shastney and his cronies' greed.
NBC Prime was able to obtain this document, Cabinet Conclusion number 281A of 2021, dated April 19th, 2021. The caption, Compensation for Land Acquisition at Azjabet Cove, Quarter of Ancillary. The conclusion addressed an April 6th memo from the Department of Physical Planning seeking Cabinet's approval for 4 items. Number 1, the vesting of parcels 0037B, 95 and 96 to Invest St. Lucia for the purpose of, quote, facilitating touristic and other economic investment opportunities, with Cabinet agreeing that St. Lucian nationals have first priority of investment. The second is for a company, Gold Sky Investments Inc., to be compensated EC 9.4 million as, quote, full and final payment for the acquisition of these 2 parcels of land to, quote, facilitate future touristic development. Before we continue, it must be noted that government under Prime Minister Dr. Kenny Anthony had previously intended to acquire parcels 95 and 96 to facilitate the establishment of a dolphin park at Azjabet, but they were since aborted. The 2 parcels comprise a total of 3.15 hectares. Now, the third clause covers the method of compensation to Gold Sky Investments for those 2 parcels of land. The $9.4 million is to be split as follows. Invest St. Lucia, with whom parcels 95 and 96 are now vested, will pay EC 3 million, while Government of St. Lucia will pay Gold Sky another EC 3 million in cash, and the balance 3.4 million through the issuance of bonds. Now, before we get to the 4th and final clause, let's establish who is the registered landowner of block and parcels 0037B, 95 and 96 located at Azjabet. Attorney and former government minister Richard Frederick on the June 17th episode of his talk show, Can I Help You?
The owner as of today, June 17th, 2021, is Edward Joseph, DC Chef Harry. Yes. This land belongs to and has not been removed from the name of this Chef Harry. And as you can see there are about 4 cautions registered against this land, this first parcel. Can you give me the back of this land register for parcel 95? So in addition, right, look the back of parcel 95. In addition to all those cautions, folks, there are several institutions, NIC, Inland Revenue, First National Bank, Caribbean Banking, all of them have an interest in that land because apparently Chef was owing and he used that land as guarantee. Parcel 96, folks, is the same thing. Edward Joseph, Chef Harry, deceased.
To your screen are NBC Prime's copies of the land register for both parcels of land. They are congruent with Frederick's revelation that block and parcel numbers 0037B, 95 and 96 are indeed registered in the name of Edward Joseph, aka Chef Harry, the deceased proprietor of the Green Parrot Hotel. Now, both parcels of land, according to the land register, have numerous cautions against them, including notes stating that numerous institutions, including the NIC, Inland Revenue, and a number of local banks have interests in the respective properties. Addressed in Clause 4 of the Cabinet conclusion, that these other parties with interest be, quote, dealt with directly by Gold Sky Investments Inc. and the estate of Joseph Edward, end quote. Now, who is Gold Sky Investments Inc.? Here once again is Richard Frederick.
As you see here, the director of the company, as of the date of the annual return, Mark D. Mark D. Maraj, the sole director of the company Gold Sky Investments.
According to the company registration documents obtained by NBC Prime as well, Mark D. Mirage was the sole shareholder as at December 31st, 2020. Of note on the April conclusion is Attorney General Stephen Julian, who is first cousin to Principal Mark Mirage, recused himself from the cabinet meeting. It must be noted as well that more directors were added 1 week following the April cabinet conclusion. Now, based on the information presented, that is, the land is registered in the name of Edward Joseph, yet cabinet is seeking to compensate the company Gold Sky Investments, Frederick, the attorney, suggests that the parties involved acted ultra-virus.
I will say this: it is downright unlawful. It is illegal. It lacks any kind of justification, an iota of legal justification for the cabinet of ministers to agree to pay to anyone or to agree to pay to any company compensation for acquired property which is not registered in that individual or in that company's name.
Is it illegal? Well, following Richard Frederick's claim, our news team phoned a prominent local attorney well versed in land law. The attorney, who spoke with us on condition of anonymity, stated the following, quote, "Cabinet has no right to involve itself in the payment of claims to priority interests or creditors regarding the sale of private lands. That lies between the landowner and the creditors," end quote. Further to this, quote, "It is indeed illegal for the Cabinet to compensate a company for the acquisition of land to which the company or individual is not the registered owner," end quote. Therefore, with this information in mind, NBC Prime asks the following questions. Is there a last will and testament in the name of deceased Joseph Edward, aka Chef Harry? If so, has it been probated? Who are the rightful heirs to block and parcel numbers 95 and 96? Is there a court order or court orders regarding the settlement of monies owed to creditors or other parties with interest? If so, was Gold Sky Investments Inc., owned by Mark Mirage, appointed receiver? And if not, how does Gold Star fit into the equation?
So, of course, there would be the response. And, of course, Mark Mirage made his own curious release, gave his own curious press release and so on. And it brings to mind the one word, sophistry.
Last night you would have witnessed Richard Frederick's vicious attack on my character in relation to lands at Anjabet acquired by the government of St. Lucia. I wish to set the facts straight. In October of 2013, the SLP administration acquired those lands which belonged to a company belonging to myself, Manasseh Siwak, and Curtis Clark. And he did so, the SLP did so for the purposes of establishing the Dolphin Cove project in Anjabet. From 2013 until recently, this company belonging to myself, Manasseh and Clark have sought to obtain compensation with very little gain. Finally, the matter has been resolved, but Richard Frederick, in his ire to get at Alan Chasney and Mark Mirage, has selectively chosen documents from the land registry file to give a mired and obscure view of the true facts. The fact is that by an email of September 12, 2012, Dr. Kenny Anthony, in responding to then Representative for Ancillary, indicated his favor for the Dolphin Cove project in that area. In January 2018, the government commissioned its own valuer to value the property, and it was that valuer who arrived at a valuation of $9.5 million for the property. In negotiations with the government, myself, Clark and Siwak agreed to waive any request for interest and agreed to whatever proposal and payment plan that the government would suggest. In the circumstances, it is very clear that Frederick, in his own myopic and selfish desire for political power, is prepared to sacrifice the reputations of good, honest people at the altar of political ambition. It is very clear that Mr. Frederick, being an attorney at law, knows how to be very selective about what he chooses to put before the public. I wish to issue a word of caution to him that if he is going to run a story, he should first contact the person against whom he is running the story, but also make sure he puts forward all of the facts so the truth can be known by the public. And to John Doe or the public, I would say, be very careful in the information that you receive from persons who have their own biases and their own agendas to serve.
The first thing that was curious about that for me was just the part where you put it in graphics and you put it in Google Earth Maps. Then came the projection. I mean, you're a lawyer, you have a serious matter like that. You care about graphics and all the rest of that stuff. You just do, and you state what you have to state. You show your documents. Then the length of the presentation, a little 2-minute thing. Say, Then you start to head a projection. Projection, for those that don't know, folks, is whatever you are thinking or you're capable of, you tend to believe that other people are thinking and are capable of the same thing. So he speaks about lawyers being very selective in what they put out and the way that they put it. And in truth, folks, when you hear lawyers tell you about my good name and my character and honest people and so on, folks, in general society, honesty and character and these things matter. I agree. But when it comes to lawyers, the reason why people have such a loathsome feeling about most lawyers around the world is because truth and lies for them are just tools of the trade. It's the same way that a doctor will use a scalpel or a dentist will use a pick. It's as simple as that. That for them, these are just tools of the trade. Truth and lies and all of the gobbledygook in between, the reticence and the sophistry. But, of course, the Prime Minister's hemorrhoid had to chime in, and he gave a much more expansive defense because we all know how good Norbert is when it comes to kissing the ass of the UWP and UWP operatives.
I conduct my own analysis of the paralysis and I present to you the evidence. I present to you the evidence. There you go. Number 6, page 6. And that's the first publication in the Gazette of notification of the intention to acquire lands. And there's the block and parcel numbers. It says so, and for the purpose, and whereas it is considered by the Governor General acting on the advice of Cabinet that part of a certain parcel of land at Ansjabet Cove in the quarter of Ansare is likely to be required for a public purpose, to wit, future touristic development. Okay, that's the first publication. Second publication in the Gazette, 1 week later, or a little over a week, of October the 8th, 2013. Let's go to that, the final page, page number 8. Hey, Taylor. There you go, folks. Zoom out a bit, let them see. I don't know if you can show the date. Is there a date at the top of that page? I like them to see everything, you know. Let them see everything. What's at the top there? At the top of the page. Is there a date there? Or at the bottom? What's at the bottom there? At the footer on the page, the footer. Down, above. Second public, you see there? It says second publication. Tuesday, October the 8th. Okay? Right. Now, what I want you to see now, continue with that news clip from where he stopped off at 2:19. The news clip. NBC News from yesterday.
Goes to the fourth and final clause. Let's establish who is the registered landowner of block and parcels 0037B, 95, and 96 located at Al-Jabet. Attorney and former government minister Richard Frederick on the June 17th episode of his talk show, Can I Help You?
So hold on there now. Hold on. Now, Miguel Fevrier is using his colleague, because they work at this, they have their shows at the same station. He's using what Buddy said there as the foundation or the basis for his story. He's using that as supportive evidence because Buddy's a lawyer. Buddy was a policeman. So he's using that to bolster, to support the story that he has. Roll it.
The owner as of today, June 17th, 2021, is Edward Joseph, deceased Chef Harry. Yes. This land belongs to and has not been removed from the name of deceased Chef Harry. And as you can see there are about 4 cautions registered against this land, this first parcel. Can you give me the back of this land register for parcel 95? So in addition, right, look the back of parcel 95. In addition to all those cautions, folks, there are several institutions, NIC, Inland Revenue, First National Bank, Caribbean Banking, all of them have an interest in that land because apparently Chef was owing and he used that land as guarantee. Parcel 96, folks, is the same thing. Edward Joseph, Chef Harry, deceased.
To your screen are MBC Prime's copies of the land register for both parcels of land. They are congruent with Frederick's revelation that block and parcel numbers 0037B, 95 and 96 are indeed registered in the name of Edward Joseph, aka Chef Harry, the deceased proprietor of the Green Parrot Hotel. Now, both parcels of land, according to the land register, have numerous cautions against them, including notes stating that numerous institutions, including the NIC, Inland Revenue, and a number of local banks have interests in the respective properties. Addressed in Clause 4 of the Cabinet conclusion, that these other parties with interest be, quote, dealt with directly by Gold Sky Investments, Inc. and the estate of Joseph Edward, end quote.
Pause that right there.
Now, who is
Pause that right there. Go back 5 seconds for me, please. Again, another opportunity to see that at the bottom of that Cabinet conclusion, it states Cabinet further agreed to rescind conclusion number 478 of the 27th of May 2019. But both he and Frederick, for all purposes, for all and intents, failed to follow that critical clue, that critical part of the Cabinet conclusion, which would lead them to more information, but for whatever reason, they failed to follow that clue right there, which would lead them to information indicating what happened with the property's ownership. And as Buddy said, Fredo, as of June the 17th, 2021, which was last week. But folks, let me tell you something. You can come back to me now. Keep it there. Come to me. Just like when Kenny went into that deal with Black Bay, the Black Bay lands, remember those? A few days before elections. They went through all the official stuff then. But it takes time for what do you call it? Red tape? It takes a while for things to go through the system. And when this government, year before, finalized what Kenny had sealed by signing with Black Bay, said, oh, the government signed away lands. Oh, SLP was out. Yeah, you were out of government, but you signed for government. That was before elections. So the government now is bound. The government now, if you sign a loan agreement with an agency, a bank or whatever, can't come now and say we disagree with the loan. You have bound. It is not a party thing. It's a government of St. Lucia. That's why this government was bound by Grindberg, dang nabbit it. That's why we were in the To My Boy with Grindberg. That's why we were in the To My Boy, and that's why Rochamel stuck us in the dada. That's why Because when you commit, it doesn't matter on which side you commit, we're committed. Because you signed for St. Lucia.
So we signed, we committed, because you all said that the land was acquired, except that it wasn't acquired. There was an intention to acquire. Now those who say that in all what Mark Mirage said, why didn't he say he's filing a lawsuit? Very good question. If you are such a paragon of virtue and this is such on the up and up, why aren't you filing a lawsuit? Every week you're threatening to file a lawsuit against Richard Frederick or me or somebody. That should tell you something. But the truth is, even when they file lawsuits, folks, they just do it because it sounds good and it's good theater. Even if they're going to lose the case, they take that as par for the course in terms of just making sure they have something out in the public domain to vaguely people. And then even the other points, you know, somebody also messaged that to me, but I'd seen it before. You all notice where Mark Mirage did the press statement? Here's a man of his own law office and everything, but yet he gives his statement in the PR room, right, of the office of the Prime Minister. So did he only make the statement at the behest of the PR people like Peter Wickham and the Cambridge Analytica people or the other consultants that they have from England, the States, Barbados and so on? Or was it the brilliance of Ricole MacDonald? I doubt that. What is it? Is it Pinkley? No, oh, no, it can't be Pinkley. So how does that work out? Well, I guess it's a truth versus truth time. Miguel, take your bow.
Mark Mirage claims he is a victim of bullying. In a 2.5-minute video released Tuesday, June 22nd, the director of Gold Sky Investments, Inc. sought to debunk what he said were vicious attacks on his character by fellow attorney and talk show host Richard Frederick over the acquisition of some 3.15 hectares of property at Alshabet, Aslaray. In his defense, Mirage displayed documents associated with his account of the series of transactions relating to his company's ownership of block and parcel numbers 037B, 95, and 96, which Prime revealed through a recently acquired copy of the land register belonged to deceased Edward Joseph, popularly known as Chef Harry. But is he accurate? Here is truth number one.
In October of 2013, the SLP administration acquired those lands, which belonged to a company belonging to myself, Manasseh Sewak, and Curtis Clark. And he did so, the SLP did so for the purposes of establishing the Dolphin Cove project in Anjamet.
Now let's take a look at the supporting documents Mirage supplied with the statement. It is in fact dated October 15th, 2013, addressed to the now deceased Edward Joseph and signed by one Vincent Jean-Baptiste, then the acting chief surveyor and authorized officer regarding land acquisitions. The letter bearing the letterhead of the Ministry of Physical Development was captioned, as Mirage stated, "Land acquisition for touristic development." However, the letter was only a notice stating that government was in the process of acquiring the lands. Therefore, this letter serves only as an intention to acquire, not an acquisition. Government acquisitions must be substantiated by Gazette notice. The land register must reflect a transfer of title to the Crown. Therefore, in the absence of both documents, it stands to reason that the Kenny Anthony administration did not acquire parcels 037B, 95 and 96. Moving on to truth number two.
This company belonging to myself, Manasseh and Clark have sought to obtain compensation with very little gain.
When I first reported on this land acquisition scandal, I stated that 2 directors were added to Gold Sky Investments, Inc. 1 week following the cabinet's conclusion. Exhibit A. When Gold Sky's annual returns were filed in January 2021, Mark Mirage was the sole director and shareholder. Exhibit B, on the other hand, is Mark Mirage's copy of the return of allotments for Gold Sky Investments, Inc., filed May 27, 2021. The cabinet conclusion was dated April 26, 2021, and bears the stamp of the Permanent Secretary of the Department of Physical Planning with a May 20th date, 7 days before the new shareholders appear. The 3 shareholders listed on Mirage's document are Thomas Curtis Clark, Mohinder Sewak, and Lone Wolf Capital Inc. This last shareholder, Lone Wolf, is listed as an international business company number 2018-00074. Now let's move on to truth number 3. The extract shown here, 27 seconds into the video, is an agreement for settlement between a claimant and Mr. Mirage as defendant for monies owed, not a company registration of directors. This is corroborated here 50 seconds in, where Gold Sky Investment, represented by Director Mark Mirage, is referred to as the defendant in the matter. Clark and Sewak are listed as interested parties. From there, we move to truth number 4.
Finally, the matter has been resolved, but Richard Frederick, in his ire to get at Alan Chasney and Mark Mirage, has selectively chosen documents from the land registry file to give a mired and obscure view of the true facts.
Let's examine the documents the attorney presented as fact. On your screen is the document presented by Mark Mirage at 52 seconds, purporting to be a transfer of properties 95 and 96 to Gold Sky Investments by Edward Joseph for $100,000. While it states that it was executed on 11th October 2012, there is vital information missing, which would in effect assist in determining the veracity of the transfer. Missing is an instrument number and an official land registry stamp with the date of filing and the registrar's signature. This brings into question the authenticity of the transfer. And finally, truth number 5. The Prime Minister's attaché on his weekly talk show sought to dismiss our initial report as fake news and presented what was supposed to be a land register to show that block and parcel 95 and 96 are properly registered and ceded to the Crown. The document bears a May 22nd, 2021 date. Now it must be noted that on Tuesday, May 22nd, I reported that well-placed sources indicated that the lands were strangely vested to the Crown on Monday, June 21st. This did not exist prior to the date. One attorney suggests that this document may be fraudulent as, quote, every piece of land in St. Lucia must have a registered owner at any point in time. This one says nothing. Also of note is that there is no record of Gold Sky Investments owning the land in question at the land registry. So the question remains, why would government approve payment to that company? In addition, Cabinet is not a lawmaking body. It therefore stands to reason that the conclusion subordinating statutory creditors with an interest in the property, that is the Inland Revenue, the NIC and the banking institutions, is outside Cabinet's authority and in effect null and void. Now, since our report of Monday, June 21st, MBC Prime has been experiencing difficulty in obtaining any land registers related to block and parcel number 37B, 95 and 96 from the land registry.
Now, in as much as I've made my attempts, and so have the media, to sort of break this down, if you still find it Byzantine, I want to speak to those who support Chasney and the guy and that cabal cabinet. Right? First question I have is, do you think that if you keep these guys in office, this will get better? Do you think that they will stop what they're doing? If on the eve, not even the eve, if after midnight and 18, 19 days into the 6th year of a 5-year term, they are still scrambling right now, and I'm telling you, St. Lucia, right now, the UWP operatives are busy trying to get whatever money they can, and whatever they can't get in money, they are abusing Crown lands to get whatever lands they can, so that no matter what happens to St. Lucia, we go to the IMF, we cannot pay salaries, we cannot afford social programs, we cannot do anything for the poor, the indigent, the middle class that Chasney has pushed into the lower echelons of society. No matter what, none of that will matter, because at the end of the day, these people have set themselves up. The delays in calling the election now are because of a lot of bubble payments that need to be made before they go to the polls, the quid pro quo. This is just one example. But you support Chasney. Yeah, man, the man got the man have vision. You see the man sit down and eat a fish with a cat. Sit down by it by a cat eating fish. Well, if you believe that, here is my question. They don't have money to take care of the poor, but they can have money to buy votes. They don't have money for the last 4 years to do anything for the people, but they can take roads on credit now. They're taking care to give one of their top hacks, a pathological sociopathic liar. They're giving the man $9 million in cash and kind for land that he doesn't have title to, and you're going to watch me and tell me that you think that you are going to get anything better out of this? So you're literally going to vote for bad governance? Okay, well then let's enjoy the ride.
The question as to who advised cabinet should have been answered by government's lawyers, i.e. the Attorney General. The Attorney General's chambers, in there you have a group of lawyers who are supposed to be advisors to the government, legal advisors to the government. And that blatant illegality rests on their shoulders to attempt to explain. So, we heard from Mark Mirage, and I heard Nancy spew nothing short of nonsense. And Mark Mirage recorded a message for public consumption. A message that was obviously intended to place him and his company in good light. In all of this, Mark Mirage has not told the public why the $9.4 million of taxpayers' money should be paid to him or his company, for which he never had and still does not have, neither does the company, title, and he allegedly bought the land for $100,000. Firstly, the St. Lucia Labour Party government never, and I repeat, the St. Lucia Labour Party government never acquired that land. They never did. Never. That is not to say, however, that they did not manifest an intention to do so. An intention to buy a car and the actual purchase of a car are two totally different things. An intention to buy a house and the purchase of a house are two totally different things. When you buy a house, you pay money, you sign a deed, and the house is registered in your name. When you get your deed, you have title. That is the process for buying a house. So as much as you like it, and you measure curtains, and you measure carpet, and you measure which size bed will fit in the master bedroom, the purchase is not completed, no matter what your intentions are, unless you've paid the purchase price and the transfer has been effected. So Mark, as a lawyer, knew for a fact that the Labour Party government never acquired the property. They manifested an intention to acquire lands that belonged to Edward Joseph, aka Chef Harry. Now, folks, the land was Chef Harry's land until Monday, because obviously I blew it on Thursday. Chef Harry died in 2014. It took 7 years and 1 working day after Richard Frederick's show to have the land register, to have Chef Harry's name removed from the land register, and for the crown to be placed there, because I let everything out of the bag. So it was only on Monday After my show, on Thursday, they figured no. They changed the land register. So there is no longer a land register to show that the land now belongs to Chef Harry. It will show that it belongs to the crown. But I want to go back to show you again the land register that existed up to Monday morning. Could you put up that land register for me, please? Good. And you will see it is stamped here, June 17th, 2021. That is the land register that shows the proprietor of the land. Of course, it shows a lot of cautions in the front. We'll come to that in a bit. But that's the land register. You could take it down. The land register, folks, also shows... Oh, put it back up for me, please. Put it back up for me 1 second. The land register also shows the history of title. It shows the history of title. I want you to look at the top left of your screen. Look at this well. When you all think you all can fool St. Lucians, you all can't. Origin of title, first registration, 16th of June, 1987. You will see here entry number 1. Entry number 1 on the left of your screen, the same 16th of the 8th month, 16th August 1987, Edward Joseph. Now, folks, in 1987 was when you had the land registration and titling project. That page gives you the history of owners. That page tells you who owned that land between 1987 and now. So it is safe to say that for the last 34 years, that land remained in the name of Edward Joseph, aka Chef Harry, and had never been moved. Let me repeat. Tessala, pour tout 4 l'année, depuis 1987, pas jamais changé met. Il pas jamais changé met. So qui manière nous katan, yo ka di gouvernement te point, yo vienne ele non chef, tout kalte bêtise. That is not true, folks. The land has been in Chef's name for the last 34 years. 34. And I'll tell you what, had this land changed title, Chef's name would be Cross. You'd probably see Richard Frederick. If I sold it, it would be Cross. You'll see probably Butterbread. You'll see Kelly. It will show you the history of titles. It will show you in whose name the property is vested. So it is safe to say that for the last 34 years, this land had never changed ownership. And the ownership of that land was only changed on Monday. It was only changed on Monday. You can take it down now. Now, folks, like I said, acquisition is a process. So I first established no one can come in the last 34 years and tell me that land belonged to government, it belonged to McBarrage, it belonged to Sky Inc., it belonged to gold, it belonged to silver. For the last 34 years, the land was vested in Edward Joseph, aka Chef Harry. Now, like I said, acquisition is a process. And I also indicated that the St. Lucia Labour Party administration, no doubt, expressed interest in acquiring the property. Of course. But the process of acquisition, folks, let me tell you what it entails. It entails publication in the Gazette. It entails compensation, and it entails a removal of the name of the last proprietor to government. Okay? So it is not only the publication in, that is like applying for a job. So who apply for a job, et who voit application, that means who travail là? No. Acquisition is a process. You have the gazetting part of it. You have the compensation part of it. And then you have the vesting in government part of it. So unless all of those three stages were fully executed, the land was never compulsorily acquired. Because if the government had acquired it, it would have been in the crown. Chef died 7 years ago. Bagay la still and no chef. Ou ka di mwen gouvernement te acquire. Gouvernement te ni yon attention pour acquire. If government had acquired, government would have compensated. Government never compensated, so the acquisition process, the process required for acquisition, was never fulfilled.
So folks, I want us to translate that in the circumstances when we speak about greed. I want us to think about this. You have a government that has borrowed $728 million in the last 6 months. You had from Sir John and independence in 1979 all the way up to Kenny Anthony in 2016, amassing a national debt for successive administrations over 40 years of 2.3 billion EC dollars. Chasney was at $900 million. $800 to $900 million going into COVID. Right now, the figures that I'm getting information is that we had $1.4 billion debt under Chasney. And we have borrowed $300 million more than the rest of the OECS islands. The second one after us, second highest, is Antigua. Now, in all of that, these other countries have provided relief. They have given stimulus. We have yet to give any stimulus. But yet, when we talk about friends, family, and foreigners, you have a cabinet where Spider Montoute, where Sarah Flood Bobre, where Fortuna Belrose, where Herod Stanislaus, where Edmund Estefan, Stevenson King, Guy Joseph, Dominic Fede, all of these people, Bradley Felix, all of them said, you know what? Let's look to take $9 million and give it to the Prime Minister's personal lawyer, who is already getting more than the lion's share of contracted legal work that could be done by Legal Affairs and the Justice Ministry. The same one involved in Galaxy, the same one involved in Balambush, the same one who's involved with the Prime Minister in all these other things. Somehow, in the eve, not even the eve of an election, but right now at the 12th hour, literally, you want to give him $9 million now, and that's who we know about. But let's just take a cursory thing and say, $9 million, what could it have done for the people of St. Lucia? Because we won't even talk about the rest of the money that's borrowed. But let's talk about that, because just a month or 2 or 3 or 4 ago, we couldn't afford this, we couldn't afford that. We couldn't afford personal protection equipment. We had to have a telethon to raise $2 million so we could get PPE for our first responders. And here we are now We couldn't afford to acquire 2 houses to put one roundabout in Rodney Bay and save tens of millions of dollars on that debacle of a project that Fresh Start is doing. But yet, right now we can give mate $9 million in cash and kind. Let's think about this, folks. Let's think about this. We could have given $50,000 grants, $50,000 to 180 St. Lucian businesses, small business owners with $9 million. If you were to look at the island-wide spread of small businesses and you gave, let's say they gave it even to their hacks. Let's say they did it along political lines, which is how they do everything. That would still jumpstart some of the local economies to give some of the small businesses, the micro enterprises, $50,000, just like if you went to Microfin or wherever to get a small micro loan. Let's say you wanted to give it to every man, woman, and child in St. Lucia. 170,000 people would get $52 in their pocket today. Now, I'm not telling you $52 is a lot of money, but for every man, woman, and child to get $52 for the amount of St. Lucians that have not made a dollar in 6-8 months a year, you never know. If I say block a hole, then you'll tell me, hey. But nonetheless, folks, after our meager finances are being assaulted and assailed by greed with this government and its operatives, on top of that, look at how we are besmirching the character and dragging people who should be extolled for their virtue and their talent like Chef Harry. We should be promoting him. Right now, we're supposed to be celebrating his legacy. Instead, we have a government and a cabinet that is literally plundering his whatever he had left for his family and his children.
You know, folks, I want to quickly show you. You can take that down. I want to quickly show you what the law says as regards your name as proprietor on a land register. So when you hear lawyers saying your investigations fall short, after there is a name on the land register, you ask yourself whether those people are lawyers at all. Because I can't understand. You take up a document, you see Joseph John as the owner of the property. You as a lawyer, based on what you're saying, is like you can do a deed of sale from Richard Frederick to somebody else in relation to that same property, to the total exclusion of Joseph John, who is registered as the owner. When I hear lawyers say that Richard fell short in his inquiry, what inquiry do I have to make when there is a land register that shows an owner? Let me just show you what the effect of registration as proprietor is. Could you put it up for me quickly? Effect of registration with absolute title. Subject to 27 and 28, and that just deals with voluntary transfer of the property and overriding interest which do not apply. Subject to those provisions, registration of any person as the proprietor with absolute title shall, not may, shall vest in that person the absolute ownership of that parcel, together with all rights and privileges belonging to or appurtenant thereof, free from all other interests and claims. So what are you telling me? What are you telling me? Land on Chef Harry name. Why are you telling me land on Chef Harry name belongs to a company? Which lawyer says that? Which lawyer does that? Effect of registration with absolute title. The proprietor with absolute title, it shall vest in that person absolute ownership. Absolute ownership. What more y'all want to hear? How on earth cabinet takes a land register, sees a name there, but us agrees to pay another company? How? 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 You can take it down. So folks, it is safe to say that until Monday, that land was never acquired from anyone. That land for the last 34 years has had one owner in Chef Harry or Edward Joseph. No one else has had title to that land. It has never moved from Chef Harry, going that name and back to Chef Harry, as some fool seemingly indicated. No. The land was acquired on Monday from Chef Harry deceased. From the estate of Chef Harry and not from anyone else. And so, folks, the government, having full knowledge of the registered proprietor of that property, was legally bound. They were duty bound to settle any acquisition, compensation, or whatever with the estate of Chef Harry. They were duty bound, having knowledge of the registered proprietor. They were duty bound to settle with the estate of Chef Harry. The question is, why pay this company? Why not pay Inland Revenue? Why not pay NIC, government institutions? Between the two of them, they are owed in excess of $8 million. Two government institutions are owed in excess of $8 million. Somebody said they buy the land for the 100,000, but you'll give them the 9.4 million instead. And leave government coffer empty in excess of $8 million. What about the interest of the creditors? How can Cabinet say that the company will settle the creditors? Cabinet is not an adjudicator. Cabinet has no legal authority to impose those kinds of legal responsibilities on persons. Cabinet cannot sue them for breach of contract. So for Cabinet to have safeguarded the government and people of this country and the creditors, those monies needed to have been paid to the executors of the estate. What about First National? What about CIBC? All their things are under the carpet. What is worse, folks? Those creditors would have a case, not against Mac Maraj. There is no case against Mac Maraj. CIBC or First National would not have a case against Mac Maraj. Neither would they have a case against his company. Their case would be, if they want to proceed to get their money, First National and this one and that one, they would have to proceed against the balance of the estate of Chef Harry. So they would have to sue the executors. That's what they would have to do if they don't get their money, if those creditors don't get their money. Now the question is it fair that compensation which ought to have gone to the creditors for settlement of outstanding debt be paid to a stranger company, whereas those creditors still have a cause of action against the estate? Folks, there is absolutely no explanation for this illegality. None. Cabinet acted illegally. Why didn't they pay Inland Revenue with a registered and NIC? NIC has a registered judicial hypothec for over $7-point-something million. Why didn't you all pay them? Why pay this company? On what basis? You know, and they are government institutions. Pay them first, sir. Folks, the reality is what the cabinet did there, they had no authority to do it. If they really wanted the land, they can acquire the land if they really wanted it. But you put the money in an escrow account pending the presentation of either letters of administration by the personal representative of the estate or by the executors of the will. Now, mind you, guess what? Yes, Chef Harry left a will. You know, when I speak, I provide evidence. Edward Joseph, aka Chef Harry, left a will. The will is duly probated. And the will has been probated since 2015. 2 executors named by Chef Harry have been appointed to take charge of his affairs since March 2015. Folks, a cursory inquiry by the Attorney General's chambers would reveal that Chef Harry left a will that is duly probated and that executors to that will have been appointed by the High Court of Justice to administer Chef Harry's estate. Are you all with me? Chef Harry left a will. The will has been duly probated. His choice of executors have been appointed by the High Court of Justice to administer his estate. And executors or a personal representative step into the shoes of the deceased, so that those executors are the ones to act jointly on behalf of Chef Harry's estate. Any payment of any property belonging to Chef Harry, like that piece of land, payment must be made to the executors. Let me show you just the front page of the will. Dated 24th of May, 2010. Scroll down, please. Last will and testament of Elfridge Edward Lawrence Joseph. This is the front page of Chef Harry's will. Okay? I will not go into I have the entire will, but I wouldn't go into all of this. But suffice it to say, folks, that in the will, he said that those 2 executors that are appointed, you all will see them in a bit, are responsible for the payment of all his debts. All his debt, rather. Payment of all his debts and the administration of his estate. The will says so. Folks, Chef Harry died in September 2014 or thereabout. In March, on the 4th of March 2015, Chef Harry's will was probated. Show them the will. Show them the will, the probated, right. Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, in the High Court of Justice, probate, be it known that on the date written hereunder, last will and testament of Chef Harry, in his lifetime of Montfortune, now deceased, he died at the hospital on the 24th of September 2014, blah, 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 and it goes on to say, the administration of all the estates Hear this, folks. The administration of all the estate of the said deceased, which by law devolves to and vests in the personal representative of the said deceased, was granted by the High Court, not by me, to one Veronica Hawley of, what road is that? Claribeth Road, London, and Gregory Neal of Beausejour. Are you all hearing, folks? Are you all hearing? I didn't make that up, the hacks. I did not make it up. The High Court granted probate to two persons, and it says here that the administration of all the estate of the said deceased, not of part, of all the estate of the said deceased was granted to those two people. Okay? And it goes on to say that they have to give an account and whatever. And show them the date that was probated. Scroll down. That was probated on the 4th of March, 2015. Folks, you all see what's going on here. On Chef Harry left his will. He left two executors. By law, everything he leaves have to go in the names of those executors. This is the probate signed by the registrar of the High Court. Are you all hearing? Since 2015. And had the Attorney General Chambers been interested, they would have known and advised Cabinet that there is a duly probated will, and any compensation for anything in Chef Harry's estate must go to those two people in their joint names. Okay, Gregory and Veronica. So folks, you could take that down now. I don't come here and tell you all any BS, folks. I do my research, I do my investigations, and then I present you facts. Not true facts, facts. Now, how on earth, in the face of a duly probated will by the High Court of Justice, in the face of the appointment of two executors of Chef Harry's estate, how on earth can a cabinet of ministers act contrary to an order of the High Court which says Chef Harry estate devolves onto those two executors? What kind of lawlessness is this? Totally disregarding a probate, which is an order of the High Court, to fulfill their own desires. Folks, this is lawlessness of the highest order. This is lawlessness of the highest order. And it is a blatant disregard for an order of the High Court. And if you ask me, it is hinged on corrupt practices. Oh yes. How can a cabinet disobey an order of the High Court? It is 6 years since a probate was granted. The High Court says, I am satisfied that Chef Harry's estate must devolve onto his executors. I mean, this is total madness. And then you come and hear crap about they take the land and they put it in the dam and it go back in that. All sorts of foolishness. All sorts of foolishness. And up to now, I really cannot understand the basis on which cabinet decided to pay to a company which at the time Mark Maraj was its sole director and sole shareholder, $9.4 million. And then Mark will talk about sacrificing the reputation of good and honest people. You know, I don't know who you're referring to, Mark. Who are the people you refer to as good and honest people? Are you referring to the lawyers who once worked with you and had to run away? What happened to them, by the way? Why all sever ties? Why? Why? Are you referring to Pinkley and Jody? Are those the good and honest people to whom you refer? Or are you referring to Maureen John and Master Builders? And by the way, Mark, I'll tell you this. I am in possession of the demand letter from Maureen John to you. I'm also in possession of the release allegedly signed, which Master Builders said they never give authority to. I'll hold back. I'll hold back. I'll await your next utterance or your next missive, receipt of your next missive. And then we will deal with who the good and honest people really are.
Madras. Hey. Free second day. Boom. I like it. Chrome.
Pani street party se jou sa la. Pani l'argent encore. Si nous tous prenons responsabilité et faire ça nous ni pour faire, bagay la kay marcher et nous tout kay manger. En nous tirer la peine nous kay danser encore.
Wear a mask, wash your hands and maintain a 6-feet distance. If we keep St. Lucia safe, we can keep our economy running.
Welcome to the entertainment nation on steroids. UTV and Hits FM, sinking the eyes and the ears of tomorrow today. Not only can you see it, you can feel it. Airing on channel 124 or tune into radio 92.1 FM is Trisha Lionel in the morning at 11 and the ever controversial Revolution with Christopher Hunt. That's right, we don't do it normal. Stay locked in with UTV and Hits FM, channel 124 and 92.1 FM. UTV, TV for you.
It seems the only way to get into office is to cause chaos, whether we want demonstrations or not.
I have to tell you, there's a recent report that was done, very interesting, looking at, in fact, it was Economist, when they had with the president of China on the front cover of the New World Power. Mm-hmm. And it was talking about the different political systems around the world and saying, is it time for the Western world to accept that the Chinese model is a better model? People want to talk about the lack of democracy in the Chinese model, but you have to give them credit. The fact is that you don't become the president of China without going to university and training to become president. So you have to be a mayor of a small town, then you have the region, and you have to go through a lot before you get to that position. Versus our democratic system, in which you don't have to have any credentials.
The signs were there. We ignored them, we let them be passed off as no big deal. They make fun of Philip J. Pierre because he says that one of the people that he admires is Nelson Mandela, somebody who all St. Lucians should admire, no matter their race, creed, or any other background, discrimination, or whatever. And here you have a man who is extolling the lack of democracy in China and their system of governance. But we didn't take heed. Admire Xi Jinping, you know. But they laugh when Philip J. Pierre says that he admires Mandela. The Labour Party and the UWP have both had experiences and diplomatic ties with both China and the Republic of Taiwan, or China, whatever you want to call it, which is Taiwan, right? Struggling to keep its semblance of independence from China. And we have diplomatic ties with them right now. The Labour Party has had diplomatic ties with China, but under Kenny Anthony in 2011, after ties were reestablished under the United Workers' Party, stayed with Taiwan. We knew what it was to have Chinese relations and Taiwanese relations. So the difference for most is that whereas China may give you a big capital works project, and Taiwan will as well, that China, when they give you a capital works project, sends down their laborers. And we experienced that in the construction of the George Odlum Stadium and other physical infrastructure, and the attendant problems that came with that. Now, the Labour Party stayed with Taiwan. So you'd think this was a meeting of the minds. We now have most of our debt, thanks to Shastney. I think over 60% of our debt is now to Taiwan, including this airport loan that was not needed when we had a PPP, like other countries like Barbados, Jamaica, India, the UK, Britain have all signed on to when it was their turn. Meantime, Shastney, even though we are supposed to be diplomatically allied together with the cabinet of Bradley Felix, of Herod Stanislaus, knowing St. Lucia's problems with unemployment, decided that they saw nothing better to do than, whether it's Edmund Estefan in Dennery, whether it is Ezekiel Joseph in Babono, they saw nothing better to do than, even though we have diplomatic ties with Taiwan, to give Chinese visa-free access to St. Lucia.
The government has decided that Chinese nationals do not require visas to come to St. Lucia. They actually, from the document I saw and I read, and the Prime Minister and member for Microsoft can always stand and contest the validity of those documents, as has done in the past in this honorable chamber. There were actually no conditions set for the entry of Chinese to St. Lucia. The document said that Cabinet took into consideration the geostrategic, geopolitical, economic, and national security interests of St. Lucia before deciding to allow almost 2 billion people carte blanche right to enter St. Lucia. Almost, I mean, you can take away a couple million, 100 millions, but it's almost 2 billion persons. And we need to ask the question, why? What is the imperative? What is the raison d'etre for this government to decide that there will be absolutely no restrictions on Chinese to enter St. Lucia? What is motivating it? One could have understood if the government said Chinese coming on business or for touristic reasons, have 1 week. You get a tourist visa on arrival, you pay 25 US and you get a tourist visa. And you can allow you to stay for a week or for 10 days. It does not say that. It says they can come to St. Lucia with no visa, whether to stay or to visit, whatever. There are absolutely no limitations. What is the motivation for it? But we also need to ask the question. We do not have diplomatic relations with mainland China. And you want to ask the question, is this an exemption only for Chinese on Taiwan? Or is it for any Chinese? The document does not clarify that. Is it for nationals of Taiwan? Or is it for nationals of mainland China? It says Chinese. And we need explanations, because these are the questions that have been asked. And if we're going to discuss immigration today, maybe we should get a statement from the government as to the thinking behind it. Because, Mr. Speaker, from my own knowledge, from international politics, from diplomacy, countries usually engage in a discussion to put in place visa exemption agreements. You have bilateral arrangements with a country, bilateral relations with a country, you negotiate visa exemption arrangements, and there's a bilateral, there's a reciprocal understanding. I exempt your nationals, you exempt my nationals. But we don't have diplomatic relations with mainland China. And I need to ask the question, are we also exempt from having visas to go to mainland China? Are we exempt? Can St. Lucians board a plane and go to mainland China? Because we have announced that Chinese no longer require visas to come to St. Lucia. And I'm saying, I'm prepared to listen to the government giving an explanation. I'm prepared to listen to the government justifying why such a decision was taken. Because I believe all St. Lucians are reflecting on the necessity for such a decision. And all St. Lucians are trying to understand what is the rationale behind it. And I think, Mr. Speaker, St. Lucians expect us in this honorable house to ask the questions that I'm asking. So before the debate ends, Mr. Speaker, I would really appreciate if the member from Mico South can explain to St. Lucians the rationale, the thinking behind imposing visa restrictions on Venezuela, a longtime friend of St. Lucia, and offering all Chinese nationals all over the world the right to enter St. Lucia with no visas, absolutely no restrictions and no conditions imposed upon them.
How much is the number of people that are ultimately coming through? And is there any mechanism for a Chinese citizen to fly non-stop to St. Lucia? So in fact, many of the Chinese who are coming to St. Lucia, some of them, most of them, all of them, have to either go through Europe or have to go through the United States of America or through Canada in order to be able to get to St. Lucia. So from a security risk perspective, the security is reduced dramatically. The second thing is that they're here on vacation, like everybody else. Then I hear this interesting argument. Do we have a diplomatic relationship with China, and therefore is it a prerequisite in order to be able to give them visa-free access to St. Lucia? Well, we have visa-free access for Canadians. Do St. Lucians get to go to Canada visa-free? We have a visa-free to the United States of America. Do St. Lucians get to go to America visa-free?
We have been in discussions with construction companies from China.
Want to bring Chinese down, 70% Chinese workers in a free country? When you have, you saying as a government the unemployment rate is high. Get your local people in work. You're giving them 70% of Chinese? What's going on here?
What is going on here? The Labour Party had diplomatic ties with China for 9 years, yet Kenny Anthony never ever sought to give visa-free access to Chinese nationals. Right now, we have experienced some degree of continuity because the Stephenson King Compton administration established ties with Taiwan. The Kenny Anthony administration kept ties with Taiwan, and the Chasney administration has continued with those ties. So we have established ties with Taiwan, and yet still we are giving out of nowhere, we are giving Chinese nationals the ability to come here indefinitely. Why? Isn't that conspicuous? And considering that we are going into elections, where this government, literally every footpath, everything that they do, no matter whether they do it on credit, whether it's money from the IMF that they grafted off and used it, and they misuse funds, or they misuse CIP funds, or whatever it is, everything that they're doing right now, they're boasting about. But when it comes to the project at Canals, bagay dwell.
Canals Resort.
The time frame between when a developer shows interest in your opportunities and the beginning of the project averages anywhere from 2 to 7 years, and that is a global figure. It is therefore quite an achievement that after less than 2 years, of indication of interest from the developers that we are now here signing the beginning of this project.
CIP-approved real estate projects around the region have not fared well, with mixed results in some countries. While the government of St. Lucia has expressed faith in Galaxy Real Estate, the company has encountered challenges in other territories. For example, in St. Kitts, the much talked about Ramada by Wyndham Resorts by Galaxy Real Estate, which has been under development since 2014, has yet to be completed, with a revised opening date set for the first half of 2020.
So we went down the list of all the things that people wanted: healthcare, education, infrastructure, job opportunities, entrepreneurship, to be international, to earn an income that was high enough that I could travel around the world.
However, it should be noted that many of the CIP real estate projects in the Caribbean have been fraught with challenges. According to Investment Migration Insider, which has developed a tracking tool to keep tabs on such developments, quote, "Too many CBI-approved projects either never get off the drawing board, grind to a halt, or aren't completed on time. In some cases, developers engage in downright fraud by collecting investment without building anything at all."
We have become a government that is evidence-based. I think that they have an amazing project in St. Kitts. We've sent people up to see it. It's fairly far advanced, and the Galaxy people seem very well financed. And I'm grateful, one, that they've chosen to come to St. Lucia. Two, I'm very grateful that they've been able to now step in to the project in Canals, and I'm looking forward to seeing that project start.
Are you comfortable with the investment?
I am.
We're also in very advanced stages. The plans have now been submitted to the DCA, and they're currently conducting their EIA at the property that we know as Honeymoon Beach. That is being done by a group called Galaxy. Galaxy currently are constructing a property in St. Kitts called Ramada.
CIP-approved real estate projects around the region have not fared well, with mixed results in some countries. While the government of St. Lucia has expressed faith in Galaxy Real Estate, the company has encountered challenges in other territories. For example, in St. Kitts,
Galaxy people seem very well financed.
According to Investment Migration Insider, which has developed a tracking tool to keep tabs on such developments, quote, "Too many CBI-approved projects either never get off the drawing board, grind to a halt, or aren't completed on time. In some cases, developers engage in downright fraud by collecting investment without building anything at all."
Oh yes! Once again, Mark Mirage, the Prime Minister's personal lawyer. Attorney General Stephen Julian, Mark Mirage's cousin, didn't recuse himself in that process, where over in St. Kitts, Galaxy Group, with a project which up to now has not been completed, they said they were going to build a 5-star Ramada. And I know that that couldn't be true because my aunt is one of the managers for Ramada, knowing that Ramada doesn't build anything more than 3-star properties, and they concentrate in the United States. But that's okay, the continental United States, because Chasney himself was there that weekend, that other investment migration insiders that were dealing with passport sales and so on, CIP, were there, and they went to tour the site and saw only a skeleton staff of less than 7 people on the site and an abandoned site, and they were the ones who got those pictures and sent them to me. So Chasney knew the project was failing in St. Kitts, still signed with Galaxy and their lawyer, Mark Mirage, who also happens to be his personal lawyer, along with Stephen Julian, who is Mark Mirage's cousin. And St. Lucia now has 200 plus acres over at Canals, which you would think going into an election where they messed up the range project, they screwed up the administrative building, and all of the hotel projects that they promised haven't come to fruition, that they, having this project at Canals, they would be boasting about it. It's in the Prime Minister's constituency, Micoud South. Hey, must be jobs coming to all the people from Micoud. But wait, there's one problem. I told you about it. The only people that you see in there is some Chinese nationals. They gave a contract to a contractor up in Monye, in Mont Sepa, to do some works, but they have about 8 Chinese nationals staying in a guest house in Tiroche. They even want to give them permission so they can bring 12 trawlers here, deep sea trawlers, which will blow a hole in the fishing sector down in Vieux-Fort in the south. But of course, we know how it goes. And you had to ask yourself, why are they not boasting about this project if it is so good when it comes to, oh yes, it's because of the Chinese labor force.
Island in the sun, what's going on? I don't understand. Baboon, Ashton, and all around. Seems to me like we're losing ground. And we should measure again how much we really remain. Past investment slippage and hurricane. Its commands couldn't be the same. This man seeing red from birth, asking really what it's worth. Meets the horror and confusion. I notice we're losing way island. We're losing ground in Coast. We're losing ground in Black Mali. We're losing ground in Sophie. We're losing ground everywhere. I find it a real affront. Soon we get a Pigeon Point. We're losing ground in Bogo. We're losing the country piece by piece. And I heard the people say, to expect we lose all Rodney Bay. Now tell me if that is fair. We have nowhere to give our soul square. Whoa, yo, why, whoa, yo, aye. But if they tell them to play, they tell them conclusion really took me by
Such a beautiful and pristine place, looking like shit there now with these Chinese worker camps and ask yourself, for a government that has record high unemployment and going into COVID and everything, why would you need to build labor camps? Why would you need to build camps for workers when, if you're building like St. Jude's, you have a labor force in Miku, you have Denry, Monrepo, you have Labrie, Shoza, you have labor force coming from Babono, from Bexor, from Lacroix. What you need to build, I mean, you're building in Miku, you're building at Canals. Why you need to build with only Chinese symbols, only Chinese equipment, everything written in Chinese, no English nowhere? You all know that the quality of production there, the living quarters there, that's not a hotel that's there, although whatever is supposed to come, we'll soon find out. And why isn't the government talking about that? With election time, you have a project that's supposed to be good. Why you all hiding that? But after I first put that out, I learned. I had to learn. You see, the Chinese, since COVID came, the Chinese, they said they left all their people, the same governance style that Shasney admires. They left all their people that were doing, that were laborers in the Caribbean and other parts of the world. They pulled back all of their state, like China State Construction, China Harbor Construction, these government, private sector, mishmash corporations that they have, you doing their one road, one belt, China Silk Road policy thing. They pulled back all those companies in the middle of COVID, but they left all of the workers in these countries. And the other islands don't want them. Barbados, that's aligned with China, has diplomatic ties, don't want them. Trinidad don't want them. Jamaica don't want them. But 200 of them are welcome to come to St. Lucia, and we're building quarters for them to work while St. Lucians stay without. And they go and they pay them and they give me a t-shirt and they go, everybody coming up on the floorboat train. And then I go home again singing the same refrain. I broke in my ass while the Chinese come again to eat all my bread. I then like a dickhead, but it's good. Is good, because if you want to say I'm just speaking and spewing propaganda, even the chairman of the United Workers Party is telling you that it is Chinese labor coming in your ass.
Now, the preferred construction arrangement for any development venture, according to Invest St. Lucia executives, would be to use St. Lucian companies and laborers. However, where Canals is concerned, Caribbean Galaxy Group has opted to fly in most of their workforce.
NBC Prime obtained footage of a recently built compound reportedly constructed for the purposes of housing foreign workers.
If, say, I know you've been running away from it, but if, say, an investor comes and he says that I want to have 1,000 or 90% people from X country that are not St. Lucians, Invest St. Lucia would then say no. Okay, you can put it in your proposal, but we will not recommend a project that does not benefit St. Lucians and St. Lucian employment. Although we're not necessarily the ones signing the contract, we as a government agency responsible for investments do have an opinion, and we would have no issues in giving that opinion.
That opinion is presumably considered by the Cabinet of Ministers, who ultimately determines whether to proceed with a development project. Canals has been earmarked for touristic development since 2007. The ensuing decades-long and at times controversial attempts to lock in an investor came to fruition in 2019.
This is the fruit of visionary leadership, hard work, time, policy making, bold partnership, and extensive promotion.
A groundbreaking ceremony for Caribbean Galaxy Group's Canals Resort Development Project, hosted by the government, was held more than a year ago, last January.
This is a development that we can support.
Caribbean Galaxy Group will transform hundreds of acres of pristine coastal Miku land into high-end vacation suites and condominiums. The lucrative contracts to build Galaxy Group's Canals Resort, however, appear destined for outside workers. Invest St. Lucia Chairman Binkley Francis is hoping to change that.
I was privy to the contract that Canals had with AM Resorts, and they were very, very strict timelines. They have been eager to come to St. Lucia, and they want to see it happen now, right? So they had to deliver that project within a specified period of time. Very unrealistic in my mind, but I think it was ambitious, but they felt they could do it. The best option was to bring in labor from outside. So we did negotiate with them very, very hard. And obviously, myself, the Prime Minister, it's St. Lucia first, you know, so we need to make sure that our people get the jobs first, right? And especially you're aware that it is a CIP project. So our position was that 80% of the employees has to be St. Lucians, right? And that is where we were with that, right? I believe since the pandemic, the project has pretty much slowed down. They have committed to moving ahead with the project, but there is definitely an opportunity to revisit that. We have people available right now because a lot of the project has slowed, right? And when we do decide to start that project again, it will be a different conversation.
NBC Prime understands the compound built not too far from the Canals Resort site at Miku is currently uninhabited. Now, sources close to the project claim the workers expected to occupy the living quarters will come from parts of Asia.
What was the ideal quota? I mean, what was the ideal quota, or let's say negotiating on the amount of workers?
I'll tell you what I want is 100% St. Lucians. That is my ideal quota.
The best option was to bring in labor from outside. So we did negotiate with them very, very hard.
The Canals Resort Development Project, once mired in controversy, has again been signed off on and is on track to begin construction. Except most of the laborers for the Canals project, which is spearheaded by Caribbean Galaxy Group, an Asian-owned real estate firm, will be imported.
The best option was to bring in labor. The best option was to bring in labor.
Now, it's obvious what's happening. And they've admitted what's happening. You don't build a Chinese worker camp and then build another Chinese worker camp. You don't build it and you know 5, 10 of them sleeping in the toilet. So you know 200, you can see on those compounds, you can see where 200 workers can fit in. You imagine how that's going to affect the labor market. When we had Chinese here, when we were building the George Odlum Stadium, I've said it a million times, I'll say it again. In St. Lucia right now, the average worker, tradesman, carpenter, mason, steel bender, you name it, will work for between $150 to $180 a day. Right now they had workers, Fresh Start had workers working on St. Jude's at $50 a day, breaking the backs of these people, of our labor force. When the Chinese come, you can pay them 40 EC a day. They sleep in containers and just send them alcohol and prostitutes. That's it. And there was even a UWP post encouraging the prostitution part when it came to DSH. Folks, 640 acres makes a square mile. 640 acres. Now if you add up, now Tewa King has 1,500 acres, but we just going with what was given to him in terms of DSH because he also has Il Pirata and Kokodan, 1,000 acres. You have Cabot in Cap Estates, 340 acres. You now have Canals, this Galaxy thing. Note well, another project which is taking our passports money to build, and we have no shares in. And the excuse has always been, like you see Cabot coming with PR saying how many jobs people get. Bullshit. But the worst part is, hey, not even the jobs are we getting. And we have an imported labor force that is going to gut the labor market for St. Lucia, undercut it. And what's even worse, we lose the land over 200 acres. So if you add up DSH land, Cabot land, Galaxy land, that's 1,540 acres. That's literally 2.4 square miles. So when you hear the songs and you're teaching the children in school and you tell them 238 square miles of island. No. We have 235 square miles of island left thanks to Shastney. We don't have an equity stake in these projects. The passports money that should be ours, they are selling the passports and using it to do the projects, which is discrimination. It's prejudice to look at St. Lucians and say we are not good enough to do any projects if we have no money. But you will take our passports, give it to somebody else to sell, a foreign national, and they get to keep the project for themselves, and we don't have shares unless ministers are silent partners. We don't know. So right now, you have New Nova Scotia or New Caledonia, Cabot or whatever in the north. You have Beijing, China canals on the east coast. You have Malaysia, DSH, whatever, Vie Malaysia in Vieux-Fort. North, south, east. Think about it. But let's revisit before I open up for a couple of calls. Let's revisit now Galaxy. And let me ask you a question, folks. This footage is from Wednesday, 2 days ago. How come a government that is looking to have Flurbo Forum, a government that looking to push this, to push that, to push the other, they have all kind of youth program, they boasting about, oh, they did so many projects and what they doing. You have Champas and all the rest of the ignorant squad there, the Bofest man. How come they not boasting about that project? You know why? Because even up to 6 weeks ago, Guy and Shastney went down there, right? They're telling them to bring in the Chinese workers little by little. Although my immigration sources are keeping me abreast, I showed you some of them that have come in. And they're ready to send back 6 of the 8 that are there, that are working, that are staying over in Tiroche in the guest house. And they are starting to come in. But they're just trying to hold on until after elections before you see the full force. But in the meantime, they have started their construction. Here's your evidence. Why are we not hearing about this project? How many workers? How many non-nationals? What's going on? How come we're not hearing about this project? How many Asians have come in to start doing the earthworks and the foundation works? The phone lines are open at 5727-588 and 4847-588. We have a call on hold. Good afternoon.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon, Christopher.
Good afternoon, sir.
I don't want to be too long today,
No problem.
I want Bradley Felix to respect the civil rights movement. I want him to respect Nelson Mandela. I want him to respect Joe Louis. I want him to respect all the people that have died for that right to vote. Bradley Felix, where is your conscience, man? Nelson Mandela, jail for the right to vote, man. People are still dying. Respect the young people of Taiwan that is being buzzed today. Respect the Russians. Respect all over the world. The people in China that's being buzzed today. Bradley Felix. You will have blood on your hands. Too many people have been shedding blood for that, my boy. Get back to your conscience, man. Be a conscience. Use your conscience, man. Go and take a Smith. You used to smoke, man. Take a Smith, man. Yes. Thank you, brother, man.
Thank you, caller. Thank you. I wish we had more time. I could have probed that to find out some more context there. We have another call. Well, wait for that to come through. I want you to think about this, St. Lucia. There are people who know that this government is horrible. They see all of these things and they're still willing to vote for bad governance. How can you endorse bad governance and expect it to improve? How? 238 square miles, now 235? That's what we know. Another couple years with these guys. Anyway, like I said, if you can't see the writing on the wall. Good afternoon, caller.
Yeah, Christopher.
Good afternoon, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
While your show was going on, the PM was on the Champagne show. And when he was asked, when he was told that the cliche for the SLP is putting the people first, you know what he said?
What?
He will not put the people first. He was going to put politics first. Hello?
He said that today?
Yes, today. Your show was going on together with his. You need to separate your shows so you can hear him, you know.
Believe me, as soon as
that's one problem with yours.
As soon as I get off the air, I will go and look for that clip.
Yes,
I will
that's
definitely.
another controversy. Hello?
That's his truth. That is his truth.
Yeah, that's the fact. I heard that this afternoon. And I switched onto your show. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I hear you clearly.
Some time ago, somebody called Andrew Paul's show and he told Andrew Paul that the people of St. Lucia are cowards. Why? Because they failed to test the custom law on the importation of marijuana, cannabis. The Nigel Edwin guy, the professional on custom laws, actually quoted from the Customs Act that marijuana, the type of L known as ganja, could be imported under the CMO for medical purposes. And as soon as that man called Andrew Shaw and said that solutions are just after that, a few days later, the importation of marijuana came in the container. Look into that. And that's exactly what happened. They are testing the laws, and that is why you will not hear the police talking about it, because they know it's the law under the Customs Act, and they do not want everybody to know to have an influence of that action.
Wow.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, caller.
You do some research on what I said, but I don't really call your show.
I will. I'll
views are
investigate.
different.
I'll investigate. I haven't been to courts for a while. Maybe I need to see how.
But get the Alan Chastney show of today,
yes,
and you'll analyze it.
Yes.
Very, very appalling.
Thank you, caller. Thank you.
Cool.
Well, Chastney has never failed to be appalling. What's worse is that the house slaves like Champagne applaud that. They applaud the demise of their own people for something and someone alien to them. How pathetic. How pathetic. Let's see, we'll take one more call. Good afternoon, caller.
Good afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon, sir.
Chris, that land acquisition, latest land acquisition deal by the cabinet of St. Lucia. Chris, this is one of the most reckless and frightening things that this government has done to date.
Caller, if I'm telling you, and you can test it out, you can speak to people in the public service and so on. Right now, what you see there is a microcosm of what is happening. Right now, there is a supermarket sweep of land going on assets of St. Lucia for the FFF, knowing that whatever they give, they're going to get their kickbacks for themselves and also for the elections. And they want to insulate themselves so that if the Labour Party were to get into office, they will have tons of prime land vested with them.
Yes, but Chris, what I'm saying to you is in the scope of this is both reckless and frightening. I mean, yes, we know of the land sweep. But and let us reduce this thing to its simplest parts, because I mean there's a lot of distractions. There are a lot of distractions in this, stuff that are on the periphery that are not relevant.
Fair enough.
To the main issue right there. The government, the cabinet of ministers, took a decision by cabinet conclusion dated April 26, 2021. To pay Gold Sky Investments, Inc. $9.4 million for 2 parcels of property located in Ancillary. Gold Sky Investments Inc. is in the name of up to, I think, May 20th, 2021.
Yeah, caller, we spent an entire hour and a half, I think, going
Chris,
through all of these things.
Look, Chris, I am sure, I feel pretty certain that the vast majority of St. Lucians don't understand half of this stuff. But I'm saying to you that this thing is in the name of Mac Mirage. Mac Mirage doesn't have title. According to everything that Richard Frederick shared on his show, Mac Mirage doesn't have title.
Yeah.
But yet the government is paying Mac Mirage $3 million in cash. Invest St. Lucia is paying another $3 million, and the rest of the $3.4 million will be going to Gold Sky Investments Inc. in bonds.
Yes.
Now, Mac Mirage comes and he makes some noises. Nancy Charles comes and she makes some noises and Nancy Charles, you know, her part in this is very interesting, because Nancy Charles made the point that the Labour Party government in 2013 had already acquired the land. Now, if the Labour Party government had already acquired the land, as she said, why is it being acquired again by this government?
Exactly.
This makes it worse, much, much worse. You know, Chris, look, and people like Pinkley Francis and Roderick Cherry, the chairman and the CEO of Invest St. Lucia, had better be careful, because they need to do their homework on this before monies are paid out. I remember in the Tuxedo Villas matter, the comptroller of customs made inquiries of the Attorney General in terms of certain information that they needed. And speaking of the Attorney General, that Attorney General ought to be ashamed of himself, because he recused himself because he was the cousin to Mac Mirage. He is the cousin to Mac Mirage. But why didn't he advise the government that monies that they're prepared to pay, those monies they're prepared to pay to Gold Sky Investment Inc., that is illegal? Illegal. Why doesn't he? I mean, that's his role. But, Chris, to end this thing, Richard Frederick, I prefer to believe Richard Frederick's take on all of this, because after having listened to Richard Frederick both on June 17th and last night, June 24th, I firmly believe that Richard Frederick outlined the facts of this matter, while Mac Mirage and Nancy Charles came there with a fact each, a fact, a fact in our Creole, a fork, a garden fork, and you know what they do with those things. They dig up or they shovel stinky stuff. So again, Chris, this thing is frightening, and the government needs to reconsider this, because this has far-reaching implications, not just for the government, but for St. Lucians on the whole. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Colin. Now, for me, to be honest with you, if anything, the good thing is at least Mac Mirage is being exposed. It's been one of the best kept horrible secrets of the United Workers' Party, the depraved character that he is, the sociopath that he is. And if any justice is meted out here, it will only be 0.1% of what is due to him in terms of comeuppance and the amount of people that he has backstabbed over the years to a pathological certainty. But that's okay, because with them there now, what the debate is honor among thieves or not. And I'm sure even Chasney will take a blow, or has or is taking blows on the mate, and Guy too. But that's okay. You get what you deserve in the end. And I'm happy if that is what is coming true. But I still want, this is just a sniff of what justice could be like. And I want real, unbridled, unabated justice when it comes to these things. I want to see all of these good people with good characters. I want that to be put to the test in a way that holds them accountable, so that the same big lawyers of the UWP will feel the same way that the average man on the street would feel. No preference would be their backer. Nonetheless, folks, I'm out of time. For those looking for t-shirts, this is the last lap. Tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'll be up on Rodney Bay by Baywalk one more time with the t-shirts. I'm going with what we have, and the rest will be at Trisha's bar, going down with her today, tonight, tomorrow. And of course, shout outs to all those who will be heading down to Vieux Fort tomorrow on Sunday. On Sunday, I think there are some empty pots and pans all over St. Lucia. And I think they may just find their way down to Vieux Fort South on Sunday to make sure that they, once again, you know, have a little panorama. That's what you're having on Sunday? Panorama? Okay, well, do what you'll have to do. There'll be t-shirts on sale at the Phenomenal Bar at the Promenade. And there'll also be tomorrow, I will have all of the t-shirts that we have left in the north. I will have them over from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can call me, 519-1818. I'll be over there. I'll send out the messages. And this will be the last lap because I have some other things that I need to focus on. Folks, I'm sorry, but if you think that you've seen evidence coming out now, in fact, let's just wait till next week, God spare. In the meantime, to the diaspora, I want to say to you, what you lack in being on the ground in terms of perspective, you also have the advantage of being in other countries so that you can see how our governance here measures up to the governance in the countries that you are in. Now, sorry. Now, whether we like it or not, America is now being tackled by the UWP and all the rest of that. They even sent up Mr. Aleokeki, ring the bell, to New York. And to the St. Lucians in the diaspora in New York, enjoy the hypocrites that are there. I know you think it's just the same old mothers and fathers, Flubbo versus Labor type stuff. But folks, whatever charlatans that come up there, whatever conmen and bullshit artists that come up there, even if you used to see them in different St. Lucia Association things and all the rest of that, and you're playing dominoes and tell you how they write books and everything, entertain them. But then just ask them a question for me. You pick the question. Just ask them any question. And all I can tell you is, if it smells like bullshit, it probably is.
After tonight, let it be known to Alan Shasney, if you touch one, you touch all. And if he believes that this match is only about this evening, I want to say to him, the struggle to remove him from office has begun.